when it comes to the fundamentals of the religion and the obligations, of course, you fulfill them. But even within those, there are aspects that you personally might find more difficult. Whether that's fasting in Ramadan, you particularly find that difficult.
Thanks for highlighting that every chance you get.
It's just the facts. Like, I don't think you should get emotional by the facts.
Okay.
When it comes to praying, some people might find that...
Is this also going to degenerate into name calling? Or?
I mean, it doesn't have to. Like, it depends on...
Okay.
We'll see how it goes. But
we'll have to have a lecture after this on the respective elders. But
some people might find it the very difficult, for example. And sometimes, I'll tell you what, yeah?
Tell me.
Sometimes the same action might be much easier at a certain time for you.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say that. Compared to you in a different situation. Yeah. So, like, if you're at home, for example, and you're chilling, okay, it's easy to perform the prayers. But if you find yourself, if you're, say, a medical student, for example, and you're praying in between lectures and clinics, and you don't have much time, and you're just finding a few minutes and you pray wherever you can, it's a different situation. Even though it's the same person, you have the same kind of interest, you have the same, ability to do things. But because of the situation, it makes things different in that situation. But also then when it comes to excelling in the religion, now I can bring up a hadith here in which the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah said. So this is what is known as a hadith Qudsi from the Islamic paradigm. So it's that the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet Muhammad, he said that God said something. But it's not a verse of the Quran. So it's called a hadith Qudsi, a sacred saying, a sacred hadith. So he says that من عاد لي وليا فقد آذنته بالحرب. That whoever shows enmity towards a friend of mine, then I have declared war against him. Now the question comes, who is the friend of God? Who is the wali of Allah? A lot of us, we've heard this term, such and such is a wali Allah. He is a friend of Allah. And you consider people in the past, people who have devoted their lives to the religion in terms of scholarship, in terms of focusing on worship. But consider for a second that God is talking about you in this example. And I'll explain how perhaps he is in this situation. He says that I have declared war against him, against a person who has showed enmity, who is disturbing you, who is causing difficulty to you. He says that my servant, my slave, doesn't come close to me with anything more beloved to me than those things that I've made obligatory upon him. So that's how you get close to God, by performing those obligations. A lot of the time,
the basic obligations.
Like, that's the basics of the religion. A lot of the time, we don't really consider that we get rewarded for those obligations. We think
we don't value it as much as we should, really.
We think that, okay, we're done the obligations. Now let me focus on fasting extra days. Now let me focus on extra prayers.
The stuff that really get me close.
This is what, like, now I'm on the journey. No. How you start the journey is by fulfilling the obligations. But then when it comes to the optional acts, if you say that, like fasting on Mondays and Thursdays, which is fantastic, it's the sunnah, not to take away from that, but that's the way that you get close, that like, that's the path. But then someone, that's not feasible for them, or they don't have that interest. For example, for you it would be, we're talking about facts here, like for you it would be,
that would not be my interest,
different. No. For me, I'm more inclined to fasting. So I'm so much better than you.
No, but that's the real, in that regard.
You perhaps, I don't know, like,
perhaps.
But you have something that your path to the friendship of God is perhaps a different way.
Yeah, but also what's important there, if something is easier, like if fasting is easier for yourself, you do it, obviously you're going to get a certain reward, right? And you're going to get it, and that's great. But if it's really hard for me, with less of the same action, I'm going to get more.